Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at Boonlake, a game by Alexander Pfister for 1 to some odd number of players, 4 players. It says it takes about 40 minutes per player. I'm not sure. We'll find out. But in the meantime, this is a game where you are charged with settling and developing and basically forging your way in the regions around an area called Boonlake. Fans of Maracaibo and Great Western Trail will find some familiarity here, but as for how it plays on its own, well, let's take a look. So let's take a look at what comes in Alexander Pfister's Boonlake. You get the map. Of course you get the map. This map is divided into 4 regions. These regions all have different eccentricities and uniquenesses on each of their placement sectors. These are all little bonuses and gifts that you'll acquire during the course of the game. You got your tracks for money tracks, your card tracks, your scoring, 4 scoring phases, and then a final phase that are in the 4 scoring phases. You've got your little helper sheets. You've got a river that runs through it, so you can do a river dance at your leisure. Each of these, you have your little scoring tracker on the edge. Naturally, you've got these scoring tiles that you will have a say into which ones get to be used during the course of the game. Blah, 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 blah. Then you have money, 110s and I believe 20 increments. You have levers, because levers will not leave you hanging. These levers will get used to trigger certain benefits and bonuses in your custom tableau board of greatness. You also have tiles. These are placement tiles that you'll be slapping around, putting on all over the place so that you can become one with the Boonlake. And then there's cards, lots and lots of cards. These cards should be familiar to those who played any of the more recent Alexander Pfister games or similar style. Costs on the left, bonus on the right, victory points at the bottom. And then you get vases, because, that's what they are, vases. Then you each get a tableau, your own little personal player board, thick, double thick sized. You got your production section, easily broken down into 3 spots. Your production section, which gives you canoes and then production bonuses here, etc. You have your inhabitants, your houses, your hotels, settlements, and then you get cattle. Again, this is all bonus. And then over here you have your lever section, where you're going to be placing levers that do special abilities that you can activate instantly throughout the game. Then we have the curious thing, which is the main track. This is where you will choose an action and then execute it. There are ramifications to each action, both for you and for your opponents. That's it. That's what comes in every nutritious box of Boonlake, other than also the manual. All right, let's get into an example of some of the things you can do during play in the game of Boonlake. All right, let's talk about Boonlake by going through a turn or two. How do you win Boonlake? Well, you get more victory points than anyone else. How do you get victory points? It's a giant machine of hundreds of okay, not hundreds, but there are so many ways to score victory points that there is no one true path to do so. You earn victory points in so many ways that it's nearly impossible to describe them all in a terse, concise manner. Suffice to say, almost everything you do will either feed money, feed advancing you, or feed victory points, all of which eventually culminate in victory point scoring in some ways. So let's just get into it and show you what to do. We're going to start off with our friend Blue, who has 6 cards. His hand is 6 cards. No, you don't show them to your players, but I'm laying them out here so you can see them. What you have is an interesting tableau with habitants, inhabitants, houses, again, settlements, and cattle. You have at your disposal these cards. You start with some money, you pay the resources, and then you can play the card. But none of that matters unless you figure out what to do with this. This is the central mechanism by which actions are determined and executed. So, as an example, each of these tiles has an action you do. It has a card except for this one, has a card style, a card day of the week. So you can, not day of the week, but time of day. So, like this time of day, this time of day, this time of day. When you take one of these actions, well, let's just go through it. Say I decide I want to make a choice of building out Boonlake. Like, let's just get into just placing some building tiles. I would go up here and I would find, there you go. That'll help me. That means I can play this time a card of this time of day. I can do some placement. I can mess with my inhabitants, blah, blah, blah. Let's do that. So here's what we're going to do. Notice we're very far up. So 4 is going to tell you how many spaces your boat is going to be able to go downstream as a result of you taking that action. It's very weird. So we'll take this. We go, hey, hey, and we set it down here just because we're executing it. It's just kind of a nice little way to do it. So we can play a card and we look and go, oh, well, I have one white card. If I pay 4 coins and I pay one, whatever that resource is, loam, rugware, and then 2 stony stone, I can play this card. What does it do for me? Well, it's a persistent effect that I keep around that says that whenever I do ditch a card for coinage, I get an extra coin if it happens to be the same time of day as this card. So, however, I run into a situation where in order for me to obtain the resources, money you expend. Some of the resources you expend, some of the resources you simply have to have the ability to generate that many of. Basically, 2 of the resources are expendable, and any of these resources you have to say, hey, I can generate this particular thing. Now, how would that work? Well, at the start of the game, I can play this card, and I will. I'll show you how. Everybody gets to pick one of these production sites and place this, which means that no matter what, I can always persistently generate one of this stoneware. So that means that I need to have loam and 1 more stones, because I have 4 coins. You have to spend 4 coins, have this, and have 2 of these. So what I can do is the river goes this way, hence the arrows. It doesn't cost anything to go this way, but it costs you 2 coins to move a ship any amount that way. We're fine here because we can move this canoe here, and that will generate the orange resource, loam, whatever. And then we can also move a canoe this way. These are free actions you can perform. Now I have 1, 2 rock, 1 orange, and 4 coinage. And now I can play this card. All of this as part of this action triggering mechanism, going left to right. All right, now I've placed it. Now what does that mean? So again, whenever I ditch a card for money, and you can do that, you don't have to play a card. You can also expend a card and get coins, because coins can be pretty rare, at least at the start of the game here. I'm going to get 3 coins instead of 2 coins for getting rid of a card. The standard bonus is 2 coins. Yay, I played a card. I'm amazing. All right, then we go to the next step. And I, the primary player, am going to grab 2 tiles out of nowhere and put them anywhere next to existing tiles. Ooh, I'm going to put that here. And because I put it here, I'm going to get 2 coins. I get whatever bonus I place it down at. That's cool. That gives me, okay. Then we're going to do it twice because that's what the card said. Ooh, another one. Let's place that one here. Why? Because this is going to, notice the bonus underneath? I'm going to get an inhabitant, which is more rare than you think. All right, I have now done that part, and I get to take one of my inhabitants, and I can use them. Now, how do I do that? I can either upgrade an inhabitant, in this case, that's the green up arrow, or I can place my inhabitant on one of these tiles and get a bonus. Or a detriment, whatever. So these are the placement areas. There's 1 to 2 on each one. And everywhere you place them, you get whatever bonus lies in between. So I could place one here and get a card. I could place here and get money. I've already got a little bit of money back, so I'm going to place it here, and I'm going to take a card. Yay, I have a card. Ooh. For $9, you can play this card that basically says for the rest of the game, any card you buy costs 1 less. You probably want to get that one early, because 9 is a lot of coinage to spend on a discount. You don't want to do that later in the game. Okay, we are done. We have done this section here. Now notice this line. There are arrow lines. These arrow lines mean everything to the left, the primary player does. Everything to the right, everyone else does, with the caveat that some of these mean everyone else but the player. In this case, everyone else but me either gets to draw 2 cards or ditch any card they want for 2 coins. Well, Wilbur, I'm going to go ahead and ditch a card and get 2 coins. Isn't that amazing? All right, and that is it. And then we move our boat. Now, blue can go up to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It can 1, 2. Like you single spot. If you're in any of these areas, and a player wants to go, every player can be in any area that's got an anchor. But if say I start here, the other players, they leapfrog you when they go forward. So just as a caveat to that, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna move 4. We're gonna move all 4, and we're gonna get a coin. Look at that. We got a coin. It's amazing. Then we move it up, and that's it. That's the end of our turn. Now, if it was red player's turn, and red is red E, they would have a choice now to do the same thing. What is it they're going to do? Well, they're going to do whatever they want. But notice that if they get tiles that have been used quite recently, to reuse the last one, you have to lose 3 victory points, and you only get to move 1 space down the river. So you want to focus up here if you can, but if there's times when it's essential to do actions that are just been done, for example, you're low on inhabitants and you really need the tile that lets you grab more inhabitants, you're going to want to maybe take that risk. It's up to you. But anyway, so we're going to continue with this conveyor belt. We'll do one more action here, and that is we're going to do this. All right. So what does this do? You can play or discard any card that's got this time of day. I'm going to go ahead and there's no way I can reach all these resources. I don't even have a Voss. Those are kind of transitory. There's no way I could generate this much. This card is not really good to me, so I'm going to ditch it, and I'm going to take 2 coins. That's what I can do with that card. Then I can purchase a lever. I can grab Justin Lever here, and then I can decide where to place it. What am I going to do? I'm going to pay 2 coins, and I'm going to place that there. What does that mean? That is an instant action I can play at any time. All of these are different little bonuses. They vary. For example, this one, normally you have to pay 2 coins to go backwards on a canoe to go upstream, but in this case you could use that and move one of them for free. That's pretty nice. You can do that once every scoring session, so you can use it 3 or 4 times and get value out of it. Other ones say, hey, pay 1 less resource, get 5 coins, get resource. You can have your choices here, the 2 cards equals a inhabitant and 3 victory points. All of these have little special abilities that you can use during the game to kind of push you over the edge to let you do some actions you otherwise could not. All right, then we're done. Now we go to everybody's action, and I get to participate this as the primary player. I can get rid of an inhabitant to do that same action again, or I can draw a card. I'm going to draw a card. But maybe my counterpart over here wants to use one of his, and no, he's going to draw a card too. All right, he draws a card. There we go. And then we move our boat. Now, guess what? Can only move 1, because that's all I get, and we get a card. And so it smoothly flows like a river. There we go. And that's basically the way the game goes. When your ship travels to pass this lock for the first time, it's going to go this direction, and you immediately do a scoring. A scoring gives you a chance to upgrade a couple things. It gives you a chance to test your scoring vectors. When you start the game, you're going to have, you get to decide one of these. You take a couple of these and pick which one you want. They have a sort of this big objective thing where you can do this instead of playing a card. You can actually pay 9 coins to give up these resources or produce these resources, and you get these kind of big special bonuses. That's the top part. You could do those once a game, and there's up to 4 of them. The bottom part is where it gets tricky. During the scoring phase, the interim scoring phase, say we pass here, the first ship that does that is a scoring. Everyone else, they don't get the scoring. So then you have to go find what these objectives are based on which scoring phase it is. For example, if you can give away 2 coins back to the supply, you get a victory point, and if this is round 1, you've completed this this particular objective. If not, you lose it. So this is where it gets really tricky, because you can have pretty big swings here of what you gain in victory points or lose. You get to decide each round which of these you're going to actually accomplish. So you might have placed this thinking, oh, I can achieve that easily, but then round one, I'm like, that's not very many victory points. I can do better. You find one here that says, hey, do you have presence in these two locations, unknown and southern? Well, then you can place your token here and get, get victory points accordingly. So that's a little extra kind of sub quest of sorts to be able to accomplish it. Then you finish the rest of things out, do some housekeeping, and then you keep going again. Once you've gone past the second, hey, I'm a lock, and that's monster. Once you go past the second one, as you're traveling around, then you do another interim scoring, then everybody goes back. And we're going to do this all over again, except this time, as you're traveling around, you're going to go down this path, which has a lot of bigger bonuses, but then takes you to the end game, where you do the final scoring. And this is where you can count things on your cards, on your levers. Yeah, so there's certain ones like here, like you're going to get 2 victory points for every settlement, etc. You're going to get the victory points at the bottom. So yeah, so that's basically how it works. There's a lot here going on, so I'm giving you sort of a hazardous description, but just suffice to say, there's things, just to go over it, we've done levers, we've done placement, we've done card grabbing, we've done pastures. Pastures matter because when you place a pasture and then you upgrade and then you have houses, say we have a house here, and then you have cattle. When you place your cattle, you're going to get points for every house around them. That's cool. When you upgrade your house to a settlement, however, you're going to get points at the end, at the scoring phases. You're going to get points for settlements in particular areas as well. It's pretty crazy. Also, as if there weren't enough, you also have, as you're getting rid of these houses and upgrading your inhabitants to houses over here, you're also unlocking ability to get cash. And during each round, when it's time to gather your cash and get your bonuses, you're going to get whatever cash you had for stuff. And if you unlock like this row, you get this. I mean, it's just crazy how many things you can do. You also have this track, and you'll see bonuses like what's an example? There we go. Like, yeah, if I was to do this card, it says go forward twice on the money track. So look at that. So I'm going to get 3 coins during the next round too. And then same thing with cards. You're going to be able to move down this track by using certain cards that help bolster it forward. And then during rounds, you're going to go, oh, I get 3 cards and 2 victory points. And etc. It goes on and on. There's also region scoring, which means you can use this region scoring, which says I get 3 cards, and then you score 1 point for all the presence of everybody in all the other non-regions that you didn't region score. And again, mind blower. There's a lot going on. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are some really good playthroughs. John Gets Games is one. There's a couple other ones that do a really thorough playthrough of this game. What I'm showing you is all the things you could do, not necessarily the cohesive playthrough that you can expect, mostly because there's such a variety of actions. Even though everything's tethered by this particular Lazy Susan or conveyor belt type of approach, everything the actions you take explode out into other actions and possibilities, all customizable, and yeah, it's a big boon to your choosing capacity. So anyway, that's what we have. That's a little tiny example on the surface of what Boonlake is and does, and hopefully enough of a sample of what kind of things are going on that you can decide whether that's the style of game that you're interested in or not. So let's get to my final thoughts on Boonlake. All right, final thoughts on Boonlake. Again, what I showed you was a somewhat well, not necessarily contiguous understanding of the game. It mostly went over the things you can do, not necessarily the optimal way to do them, etc. So I'm not going to belabor that, other than to say, yes, don't forget that there are many different playthroughs online of this game now. Something that was not there before, but is there now. So let's talk about the cons about this game. You're going to hear some comparisons here to Great Western Trail and Maracaibo. If you haven't played those, they're not going to be as meaningful, so I'll try to keep them as terse as possible. Those previous games had a clear, singular framework of thematic constraint, and in that, all sorts of ideas and clever tricks were able to manifest themselves, but in a way that still made sense, or you can make quick sense to even semi-casual players. Boonlake, on the other hand, is awash with very clever things, islands of cleverness that don't necessarily culminate in an obvious wholeness. Some examples of the things you're going to have to think, different things you're going to have to contend with in the game: conveyor belt action queue, multi-purpose action strips, river branching, river and then looping back, personal lever system, forms of currency that some are durable, some are expendable. Cards with one time, always, and end game use, morning, night, day and night phases on the cards, personal, unilateral side stream. You have your interim scoring phases, broken into subphases. You have semi-self-crafted scoring tiles. You have house placement, cattle placement, and adjacency settlement placement, region scoring, map bonus, building tile bonus, river bonus, income tracks, card tracks, personal tableau bonuses. All of these, and many of these, no, not all of these. In fact, some of these have their own kind of just slight variances per instance, where you're going to have caps and limits and additional costs, all I'm sure to balance out the many pulleys, the pulley system that is in this game. That's something that you're going to have to contend with in a way that doesn't necessarily have some obviosity that the previous ones did. Just kind of fair warning on that one. The full theme of this game, somewhere somebody knows what the full theme of this game is. It's probably out there in all its full glory in someone's head, be a designer or artist or whatever. What you see instead in Boonlake is bits and pieces and fragments that don't necessarily do the game any favors in selling what could be and what seems like a very rich world. There's that blurb at the beginning, and then there's bits and pieces, but that's thematically, there are people out there that will play a Pfister game with cubes and a pen and paper and enjoy it because he has a special way of how he designs games that are entertaining. But if you aren't that type of person, if you do like to sort of get some cohesiveness to the experience as a thematic whole, you may find yourself asking things like, why did this mechanism get added, and questions that don't have settled answers. So the iconography is mostly explanatory, not entirely. It's very consistent, and I think it does a good job of relaying what you're to do when you're to do it. The key here is that it's vastness. There's a vast number of icons in the queue, and that means there's a large space of learning these different visual cues, even with its consistent application. I think they did, a tremendous. They put tremendous effort into making the iconography, be logical to the most part. Like some people were asking as I was playing through this game about player aid. Well, I probably think the player aid would be almost as large as half the manual, to be honest. But I still think it's kind of laughable that the game was so obvious it didn't need it. There's a certain category, a common vein of iconography that works well, that fleshes out through the game, and you'll be like, oh, I recognize it. They're all kind of categorized, drawing a card. Well, that's a common thing. But there's a lot of peripheral iconography too for things like interim scoring and your scoring tiles and things off the beaten path that aren't that obvious. Again, there's nothing wrong with the iconography or even its consistency. The pain point is just to be aware of the vastness of the iconography. Now, unless you want to become a student of the game, which many of us who love the Pfister style inevitably will, such as myself, you won't likely memorize every corner and nook of the icons throughout the game. But like some icons, you just see a picture of one thing and it's supposed to represent three different sub things you're supposed to do. That's an extreme example. And other ones, it's just like it's so rare that you see them so peripherally that you'll be like, where's the manual again? Okay, thumb. Thankfully, the manual is divided well into learn the game, solo rules, and then a nice summary of all the icons in the back. So not a big deal. Once you play through it a few times, you'll know 80% of the icons, and you'll just have to kind of look up the ones where you don't have, unless you have just extreme huge tracts of memory. So anyway, speaking of the rule book it's a mixed bag at times. There's when a game is as icon heavy as this one is, the rules that support it, the things that describe it, the phrasing and everything has to be top notch. Now some sections are really well written and grammatically coherent and they logical, orderly and stuff. Other sections have just some bizarre, obtuse phrasing and awkward composition that makes learning harder than it needs to be for all but the most avid Pfisterite. There's the rule book. Again, it's written mostly 80-20 principle. 80% of it's written great. The 20% that's not is very bizarre. Like that's objective tiles mixed up for tiles and tokens in certain spots. And then there's there's one phrase. Let me even read it up to you. Like there's a phrase where you're going over how things work with the like cattle. Like you have give up 1 to 2 and 3 4 inhabitants if your ranch has. If your pasture has 0, 1, 2, 3 cattle, and then it shows an icon of it, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.2.3.4. I'm sure someone understands that and it makes sense, but it's not. I mean, why? Why add that complication? The other thing is you have a situation. Oh, shut up, phone. Where interim scoring once or better twice. All players may either play one card of any kind. Discarding it to get 2 coins is not allowed, or upgrade. Developing is not allowed. You may also play one card and upgrade once. That's a very bizarre way of. It's correct. It's right, but it's kind of a bizarre way. The William Shatner pause for dramatic effect once or better twice, kind of thing. It's just an odd phrasing. It's not incorrect. I mean, honestly, it's not incorrect at all. It's just an odd phrasing. I mean, it's technically you could have written this in King James Old Testament. Verily I say unto you once, and yet if the Lord wills twice, thou shalt upgrade, or blah blah blah. Yeah, you could do it that way, but why not? Yeah, there could have been a pass to say what's a normal nomenclature. Like, yeah, you can do this up to 2 times. Oh, and here's a couple couple restrictions or whatever. Like there are better ways to phrase it. In another case, there was another example in the manual where someone's like they were describing the cost to pay for a card, and it was a run-on sentence that was just added confusion as to the rules for going up and down the stream that just like unnecessary. A pass on that would have done wonders to help out with that. I mean, we don't need to get into this "yo dog, I hear you like farming" kind of vernacular. Kind of thing for a game like this. It's just the rulebook, because it has to support an icon-heavy game, could have done a better job at that. And finally, the game length trap. This isn't a con. This is a observation. One of the biggest things as we were playing through it, especially newbies or playing it, in my group, is that the game takes forever to play. That it can go on and on and on, and that's usually the sign, at least according to what I've understood from the designer, that that's not necessarily the optimal way to play, and probably even a pessimal way to play. That you really do have to remember that it's a race to get down the river to optimize your pathway to do so. And so, because you don't have those rails, you don't have the bumpers on the gutters, you could find yourself playing this game a lot longer than it was probably intended to be. So that's it for the cons. Now let's get to the pros. My more favorite part. Physical components are top notch. There's the dual depth boards. They're a godsend. All the pieces are pleasant and tactile. They fit. The art is interesting. It's just interesting. Like I got used to it, and I thought, meh, decent job. The solo system, as is true of many of the recent Pfister games, solid, a nice balance between being tritely simple and flowchart level exhaustion. So points for that. Now we talked about a ton of the systems that you're going to get hit with. Let's talk about the ways that those systems are cool. The conveyor belt action queue drives the timing of the end game by how far you move your ship. It drives what you can do personally. It drives just the ordering of that. That's a it's not like revolutionary, now all games are going to come out that way, but it still is a clever way to try to get you to think about what action you can take in a way that's limited but not constrained. The multi-purpose action strips on the belt, with your personal and communal considerations, that's a really valuable part of this, because you get to decide not only for yourself, but how you're going to benefit other people too in ways that maybe they might capitalize better than you did. That said, when you're piggybacking off of some other player's actions, you don't know what they're going to pick, so you can't plan for that. You, as a secondary role in this particular action tile, have to just go, okay, well, that's what he's picked. What can I do? What can I do to maximize my secondary bonus on that? The river race, with its non-fixed travel distances, means you got to prepare for timing, critical scoring phases. It's not set in stone when these phases will be. You kind of have to key off of your opponents to really understand how the flow of the game is going to work. The river branching that doubles back for the interim 4 scoring phases it's clever. It's like, I guess it keeps the board from becoming twice as long, huh? The personal lever system for scoring, for custom activatable bonuses, that's new and that's clever. The little doors. Everyone likes little doors. Use the doors. Don't use the doors. These are kind of small little things that just kind of add a little bit of extra flavor. The personal unilateral side stream with its production sites and canoes is that's something too that can be kind of a little bit of a mini game on its own. The more as you're playing through the game, you're building up enough production that hopefully you kind of like settle into what those production sites can do for the given set of cards that you have. The forms of currency, again, it's a little bit of a weird thing. Like, you expend these, but you just have to have those. 7 Wonders nod versus regular kind of gaming nod. And the vases as a currency is way out in left field. Like, I don't, like, thematically, I don't know what they represent. They're just kind of a, like, transitory, like, situational thing to me. Maybe not, but as I'm playing through it, it's like, okay. Even after playing like many games of it, I'm like, there are times when it was advantageous and times when it was like, meh. The cards, that really what drives it with these games, in the same way as the other games where you've got these, one time, always, and end game bonuses. They generally fit into certain categories of bonuses, so it's not like every single card is unique in what it does. They fit into certain things, like, yep, bump up your money track, bump up your card track, and such. But there are a few that just kind of go out in left field and go, oh, that card would be cool. And maximizing and optimizing that is really where it matters. The day, night, morning phases, I understand that kind of dictates what cards you can use, so that it kind of filters what you can activate, so it's not just activate a card whenever you want. The interim scoring phases, when you break it down in those 5 sub-phases, is... yeah, it adds some depth as far as how you're situating yourself positionally on the map. And stuff. It doesn't take too long to execute those. Plus, you don't really know the timing of them too, so it gets interesting with that. There is a cleverness to the self-crafted scoring phase tiles, where basically on your turn, like before the game starts, you get to decide one of those scoring phase objectives. And you can be like, okay, this is what I'll aim toward. And like, if I'm putting this down, this is what I'm going to aim toward. But then you've also got 3 other options there too. And like, oh, I'm going to, which bonus you're going to take at each round, because you have the flexibility. It's not like you just go, okay, at the end of the first round you have to do this objective. In the second round you have this objective. No, you get to pick and choose, which means you can like decide which one gives you the maximum at a given time, maximum value at a given time. I hadn't seen that done. Maybe other games have done that. I haven't seen that done quite this way before. And again, like, we haven't even talked about the map yet. The map where everything just springs bonuses to life eternal. You have, again, your house, where you place your houses and how you place the cattle next to the houses and the pastures, and their little scoring rules is sort of a mini consideration. The settlement placement, that's kind of it takes it off to a different realm, because you're going to get different points and different benefits from settlements, and you got to be careful not to have settlements in the same region. That'll cost you points first. The region scoring bonus is weird, but kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I score a region, and then everyone else scores points for all the other regions is quirky. It's almost like Tobago, where you're doing the addition by subtraction thing. And again, the map bonuses, building bonuses, all that stuff, it's all just feeding into this cacophony, veritable cornucopia of decision, of mini decision goodness. And if I could, this game is 1,000 points of victory point light. This is the fragmented hard disk of victory point engines, literally. There's no contiguous vision of plans of how your victory points are going to accrue. You've got them coming out your ears everywhere. On the map, when you place the building, when you put stuff on the building, when you use a card, when you use an action tile, when you've got so many ways to earn victory points, and it's, some people could get a real big vision. You've got your min-maxers and your number crunchers, but the general populace is probably just going to be bebopping from VP morsel to VP morsel in this game, and I kind of like that. I do. You feel like you're always got a little bit of something that you're getting better at and such. So final thoughts on Boonlake. What is my summary? Well, what's the best way to describe this game? It's Christmas. That's right. And you have a 1-year-old, maybe a 1-year-old child or a 1-year-old grandkid or something like that. What usually happens, or at least what has happened historically, is that, it's Christmas and you're 1-year-old and everybody comes out of the woodwork. Parents, grandparents, in-laws, uncles, cousins, everybody. They come in and they show up on Christmas morning and they've got presents galore. They've got toys and trains and dolls and animals and clothes and noisy toys and whatever. And all of those are really cool. Some of them very clever. All of them have this 1-year-old's best interest in mind. Who benefits that Christmas? Who actually is that Christmas for? Pro-parent tip. It's not for the 1-year-old. No, the first experience that 1-year-old is going to have is being overwhelmed. They may shut down, they may melt down, they may go like, whoa, like, overload. And that can be your first experience with it, unless you're someone who's firmly in the camp of meaty, mighty Pfister, willing to tackle anything. That can be your first approach when you see all of these things happening. That is kind of the response that I got as I was playing this game with many groups. I went to game conventions. I was at several different game group gatherings. I played solo several times. In fact, when I first played it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I really didn't. I felt like it was just a little bit too dispersed. But circa forward a couple years. Now you have Christmas with a 2 or 3-year-old, and now you have the exact same situation. You've got grandparents, parents, trains, toys, dolls, loud toys, clothes, whatever. What happens, or what has historically happened with all my kids and my grandkids, is that you don't have an overwhelmed kid anymore. You have a present consuming machine. Is there more? And that's kind of the metamorphosis that I had and the groups that I played with over multiple plays, is that you go from being this overwhelmed kind of like there's so much going on to being basically a present consuming machine. Bring it on, gifts, so many gifts. And so that's kind of my take on how I approach this game. And with that said, there is a large divide with my audience, local, and the people on this channel generally. There's going to be people. This is going to require kind of separately denoting my recommendation. There were people who will will themselves to enjoy a Pfister game at any cost. People who will just go, I know who he is, I know what he does, I want it, gimme, gimme. I'm about 80% in that camp. I've found myself just enjoying almost every single game except one, but I'm not going to mention it. Oh, that's a pretty cloud. But if you're in that camp, you've already played this probably, or you're already wanting to play this, you're already expounding its praises and shirking off any impediments to thoroughly consume and revel in its embrace. You're not going to be disappointed. Now, people coming from Great Western Trail and Maracaibo that are going, oh, another Pfister game, that's cool. All I can say is gird your loins with patience, except when going down the river. You're not going to find the exquisite, cohesive framework that Great Western Trail or Maracaibo provided that made all those seemingly disparate mini endeavors coalesce into a rational whole. But if you give it time, give it space, get to know it, And you may find it to be a very nice complement to Great Western Trail and Maracaibo in your collection. As for me, it's never going to topple those two. It just isn't. I just am enjoying. I just won't. But it's a great first cousin to those games, and one that with the right group, and especially solo, I can find myself coming back to again and again. So, yay! With that, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.